Welcome to Gracefully Greying. I'm your host, attorney, and co founder of Gracefully Greying, Henry Gornbein. Today on Gracefully Greying, I'm pleased to welcome, really for a second interview, uh, the very talented writer and author, editor of D Business Magazine, D Business Daily News, Hustle and Muscle, and Detroit 500, and clearly a Renaissance man, R.J. King. R.J., welcome to Gracefully Greying.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on, Henry. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure having you. First of all, we did an interview when you wrote a book about the history of Detroit from 1700 to 1900, and I read it. I found it fascinating. I know you've read other books since then, and your latest one is Taboo, the inside story of how entrepreneur Nino Cutraro created some of the most celebrated nightclubs in America. So, RJ, what made you write about Nino and Taboo?
Well, Nino was born in Sicily. He came here in 1975. Really a great representative of the American dream. Sicily is a beautiful country, as is Italy. And for some reason, when people, either Europeans or Asians or South Americans, they come to the United States and they just fall in love with it. I think mostly it's due to the freedom, the spirit of freedom, and just the opportunities that you have in this country to make a name for yourself, take care of your family, and help others. And Nino represents all of that. He, as I mentioned, came here in 1975. Was a hard worker, didn't have much in his money in his pocket, but he had family here, and through those connections, he opened up a nightclub with his uncle in the late 70s. It was more of a discotheque called Lenote, so Clinton Township, Far East Side. Was a huge hit. It was just another level that nobody had seen here in Metro Detroit at the time. I was just a young boy at the time, so I had to do a lot of research to understand it. And then from there, that went very well. And then he went out on his own, and in 1985, he opened Taboo, which would be a nightclub akin to Detroit's version of Studio 54. So all the latest in lighting and smoke machines and fog machines and lasers and just over the top uh, audio. And it was a sunken dance floor. There was a huge, fairly large VIP room called the Champagne Room, which was three-tiered, and it had a glass front that overlooked the dance floor. So as you're dancing, you might see Aretha Franklin or Madonna, Prince, Robert Palmer, Joe Cocker, Vanessa Williams. I mean, the stars that came through were just spectacular. And he just kept going with different clubs and different that appealed to different genres. And today, Nino and his wife Elizabeth, they own Bella Piatti in downtown Birmingham, right across the street from the Townsend Hotel, and also Mare Mediterranean over on the north end of downtown, in the side, the first level of the Willits building. So he's just totally in the restaurant business today, but still the stars come to see him, and especially Bella Piatti has served as a draw. He and his wife opened that in 2013,
That's
and a
one.
year later, in walks Mark Wahlberg and the whole cast of Transformers 4 and Transformers 5, as that was shot here as well, would wind up in his restaurant every night.
RJ, I was going to say that Bella Piata is one of my favorite restaurants. I mean, the service is impeccable, the food is delicious, and the ambience is uh, with they have the veiled sections, and it's just beautifully done and very well executed. And I know during the pandemic we would eat outside, and they were able to expand the area greatly. And I know they've cut back the outdoor seating since the pandemic, but it looks like it's a very successful venture.
Yes, it is. And that's all described in the book. The book's 126 pages. It's all color inside. All the pictures that you would ever want to kind of think would be in a book like this, we were able to get them. Nino had most of them. We purchased some of the images from Linda Solomon as a local photojournalist, and she was great friends with Aretha Franklin, and then Getty Images as well. But most of them were from Nino's private collection, and it really made the book work. And it's his life story as well, so there's a lot of lessons there in terms of how to be an owner of a business like that, especially in the fast-paced entertainment industry. But also, how do you keep it going? How do you keep it interesting? And uh, at the same time, raise a family, um, and not get caught up in the whole lifestyle of that entertainment sector, and just really come out the other end as the same guy that he went in. It's just incredibly amazing to me, night after night after night, with all those stars and all the people and the fans, and Detroiters we're just such a wonderful group of people that are so appreciative of the arts. And boy, he just did it in style. I really take my hat off to him.
Well, how many years did Taboo last? I mean, it's like it was a certain era, and then it's come and it's gone.
Sure. Well, it opened in 1985 on Woodbridge Street, so the old warehouse district, so roughly halfway between the Renaissance Center and Stroh River Place, and between Jefferson Avenue and the river. And it went from 85 to 95. It was around 10,000 square feet. He had a beautiful outdoor patio that would get even more fans in. And on most nights, it very much was like Studio 54, where there was a big line out front, and you had to wait. You simply had to wait, and people did in those days. Henry, and I forget myself, but you uh, you have no internet. You have radio. You have 247 TV, and we were fortunately to get an extra channel because we live close to Canada, Channel 9. So you really going out was a major thing, and people would dress to the nines. The gentlemen would be in three-piece suits with ties for the most part, and the ladies were dressed to the nines. And if you weren't dressed up, people wondered what was going on with you, and it would be better if you didn't go out and didn't dress up. So, um, and so, you know, Taboo was that upper echelon club that nobody had. And the stars that came to town, they always, once they finished their concerts, whether at Cobo Hall or Joe Louis Arena, Masonic, Fox Theater, and even Pine Knob, they would come after their shows. The Taboo had such a mystique and a name that had been built up, and it had all of the requisite needs of what a star would want in terms of the ability to go out on the dance floor, but also have an intimate experience with their entourage, and meet new people, and maybe meet another star or two that they didn't know about. So lots and lots of relationships were built at Taboo, and it was just a special moment in time in Detroit.
Sounds like it. And now he had another venture for a while, and that was Intermezzo. And I remember going there, especially if we had an event at the Detroit Opera House or the music hall. It was right around the corner, literally almost attached to the Detroit Opera House. And again, that was there for a while, and now I think that's the location of a Buddy's Pizza, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, you're right. Well, Intermezzo is now becoming a steak and fish restaurant by a former NBA player, which was supposed to open up any day now. But Intermezzo opened up in late 1995. The Opera House reopened in April of 1996 with an opening concert by Luciano Pavarotti. Uh, he did come to Intermezzo. Nino and him were very good friends. He would stay at the Athenaeum Hotel. Nick Capone, who was the chef at Intermezzo, would uh, get his meals over there every night. And all the others, Intermezzo was really the restaurant that started Detroit's Renaissance. There really wasn't a cool spot. It was a hip, sort of lofty, urban scene restaurant that Detroiters had not seen before. The huge glass panels, windows out front, 10-foot ceilings, murals, and artwork on the walls. It had a neighboring bar that one night was the setting for a chance meeting of Prince and Stevie Wonder, and the two of them with the musicians that were there on hand had a mini concert that, again, the days before the internet, some cell phones, some pagers, but quickly a large crowd gathered out front. And, just lots and lots of examples of stars that would come to Intermezzo, and such as yourself that would go to Intermezzo and then go see the brand new Opera House. And that really, again, I can't emphasize enough, that really did kick off Detroit's Renaissance. And today, when I meet visitors from out of town all over the world, they're just blown away by what downtown Detroit has become. It truly is amazing.
It really is. I mean, we're clearly going through a renaissance here in Detroit, and the fact that they doing so much downtown, and it's really wonderful. It really is. Now, we talked about several restaurants. His latest is Mare Mediterranean, and can you tell us a little bit about that and your experience with that, RJ?
Oh, well, Mare Mediterranean. Mare translates from Italian as the sea. So they have quite a nice selection of fish from the Mediterranean, fish from other parts of the world. They'll prepare them in different ways for you, including sort of a salt crust to them that they break open at your table. And a very nice menu, very sort of, I would guess, a modern cosmopolitan sort of look inside, very, very bright. There's a nice private room off the bar for more, after dinner or evening entertainment opportunities, and just draws a nice, wonderful crowd there. And Nino and his wife Elizabeth co-own that with Jay Feldman, who owns, he is the largest, he owns quite a number of dealerships, but he's the largest Chevrolet dealership in Michigan.
Right, the Feldman Automotive Group.
Yes.
Now, what about, I mean, I don't know how he does it. I mean, you show many pictures of him with celebrities, of his beautiful family, and the various restaurants he's been involved in Taboo, which I have in front of me. And the cover has a picture of various artists, including Madonna. And it's really a lovely little book, and I enjoyed reading it, RJ. And, very different than your book on the history of Detroit, quite frankly, which was much more of a deeper read and historical from a different standpoint. But he's also very successful in the construction business. I don't know how, he doesn't sleep, obviously, but tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, he gets up pretty early. Once in a while, I'll wake up and a call has come in already. But yeah, his uncle owned a road construction business, and so Nino, even when he was in Italy and when he came here, he took lots and lots of classes on how to read blueprints and engineering drawings and understanding mechanical systems, electrical and plumbing, water and sewer, and really, has got a very thriving construction business, uh, largely residential, but he can do commercial, of course, does his own for his restaurants and for the clubs that he did. And I think the best way to sum up Nino is that he had these three major phases in his life in terms of entertainment. Taboo, which, Lenote and Taboo kind of drew that 70s, 80s crowd of entertainers that I mentioned, Sheila E. and the Robert Palmers, and on it goes. And in late 80s in downtown Royal Oak, he opened up a restaurant called Metropolitan Music Cafe. And that was the local version of a Hard Rock Cafe, and nobody had ever seen that in our region. It was a huge hit, and it served to draw sort of the second wave of entertainers, the rock and roll stars. Largely during the summer, Nina would have a Michigan Walk of Fame and charities, multiple dystrophy, excuse me, yeah, the multiple dystrophy organization was one of the major benefactors. And, he would charge a cover at the door and donate that and other things, and involve a radio station, sometimes a TV station. So he got all the rock and roll stars. So, you thinking David Bowie and Iggy Pop and NXS and Kiss, and on it went with those entertainers. And then when he opened Intermezzo, it was that third wave of the Hollywood people. So I mentioned Mark Wahlberg, but Michael Bay, the director of the Transformers series, Stanley Tucci, who's just an amazing talent. And I've met all five of the Wahlberg brothers because of Nino, and he's very charitable. He co-founded a charity golf tournament the Monday before Labor Day every year now at the Detroit Golf Club with Mark Wahlberg, and they benefit Beaumont Children's there in Royal Oak. And every foursome is paired with a star, and quite a bit of money with a live auction is donated to Beaumont Children's. So just an incredibly endearing story of giving back. And Henry, as I always say, the secret to life can be summed up in two words, and that's add value. And that's what Nino does.
It sure sounds like that. And he sounds like a wonderful individual. And I really look forward to meeting and interviewing him in the future. I would like to ask you, what would you want a reader to take away from your book, Taboo?
Well, I think one is take a chance, follow your dreams. And once you follow your dreams, stay on point. I can't stress enough how the entertainment industry can pull you in so many different ways. In terms, one drink could lead to two drinks, lead to three drinks, or, Nino never got into that, or the drug scene or any of that. Just a solid family man. So just to stay on target and, keep in your lane, so to speak, um, that drives a lot of success. You got to be there pretty much every night to make sure everything's being run properly, and to greet the guests. I think that's a great secret in the hospitality business, whether it's restaurants or hotels. Um, and I think also, just being a nice person. Some people just get overwhelmed sometimes, and
You're right. I mean, you really captured it. I'd like to now transist to talk a little bit about you. And you are the editor of D-Business Magazine and D-Business Daily News. Tell us a little bit about that and how you became involved in that, RJ.
Well, I grew up here in, well, literally Bloomfield Village. And my dad was hired by Ford Motor Company to bring forward the 8-jack tape player in 1965, which he did, and a very successful program. So got to meet a lot of executives when we were kids, and was able to write my way through school. I wasn't terribly good at math or science, and but I could write. And I started freelancing in college with the local papers like the Observer and Eccentric and the Royal Oak Tribune, Macomb Daily, and other newspapers and magazines. And by the time I graduated from U of M Dearborn in 1990 with a English degree, I was very fortunate and got on the business staff of the Detroit News and stayed there for 16 years. And right after the Super Bowl came here in '06, through a volunteer effort, I met someone that worked for Our Detroit. And the two owners, Stefan Wanjik and John Bellardo, were looking to start up a business magazine. And I saw that as a very interesting prospect. So we came together and I became the editor of D Business. And so we launched that in September of '06. So now we're into year 17. And along the way, in addition to the magazine, we launched D Business Daily News, which is a daily e-newsletter. Comes to your email about 1 o'clock each day, Monday through Friday, with 6 different business stories from our region, including one story every day that's a bunch of business briefs and updates, and typically party picks as the 7th item, and or a spotlight on a charitable organization, which we call the Give Detroit Spotlight. And then we launched an annual publication 6 years ago called Detroit 500, which is the 500 top business leaders in Metro Detroit, some around Michigan, but mostly in Metro Detroit, and all organized all the names are organized alphabetically by category. So we start with accounting and through banking and finance and education and into real estate and venture capital. And then we have lots of lists in there of the top hotels, the top hospitals, and the top engineering firms, the top construction companies. And then earlier this year, we put our toe in the water with a new Monday newsletter called Hustle and Muscle. And yeah, Hustle and Muscle, I saw that, either I would go and meet with the startups or sometimes these startup events. And at the same time, you would go meet with venture capital operations and private equity firms and family funds and angel investors. And you could just see there was a kind of a disconnect between the two. And so Hustle and Muscle, obviously the hustle is the startup side and the muscle is all of these investment organizations in Michigan. And so we spotlight a startup each week, and then we have 4 stories about either more startups or new investment rounds for different businesses. And it's really, it's all free. And it's really a vehicle, if you will, to pair the investment with the need. And we've been growing that slowly but surely. And it's really become a nice product. And we're, it takes a little time to build a brand like that, but we've got it all trademarked and everything. And if people go on there and if people go to dbusiness.com, there in the toolbar, you'll see Hustle and Muscle. And we list both sides. The muscle side, we have, I think, the best and most comprehensive list of all the venture capital firms in Michigan. the private equity firms, the family funds, the angel investors, the economic development organizations, and the asset banking organizations. So it's a great list. It's all available for free. And, that's our mission, is to do our part any way we can to help grow Michigan's economy and shine a spotlight on it. And both the magazine, through a nice relationship we have with the airport and the Skyline clubs, um, and with the internet being international, we can reach all over the world. And we really are trying to build up that, at the end of the day, is to help these startups grow their businesses.
Sounds great. It really does. I mean, you're doing a lot of amazing things. Uh, I'm curious, and this is going back to Detroit. You wrote about the first 200 years. Are you considering going back to Detroit, because there's so much that's happened since 1900 through the present? Especially, you've got really it was one of the major industrial powerhouses that went through some horribly lean times, and now it's going through a renaissance. I don't know. Is that another book that you might be considering?
Oh, Henry, you're very perceptive. Yes, I wrote Detroit Engine of America because, frankly, there was just a huge gap in Detroit's history. Before the auto industry started in 1900, there was 200 years of history here that was largely unknown. So the book describes how the French arrived on July 24th, 1701, about 100 men, led by Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac. And they quickly built a fort to prepare for the winter. And 2 days later, July 26th, they founded St. Ian's Church. And that's, as you know, the seventh iteration is right by the Ambassador Bridge. And then 2 days after that, on July 28th, they opened the first tavern, because you had to have, for the men, again, there's not a lot to do. So drinking was, an acceptable form of entertainment,
Sure.
a needed form of entertainment. And then the book walks you through how the city was built up to 1900, so to become the birthplace of the auto industry. And we were the largest manufacturing economy, the first manufacturing economy in the world. We had to be self-sufficient. We were 600 miles from the East Coast. Thankfully, we were blessed with lots and lots of natural resources, and sitting on the Detroit River freshwater basin, just an amazing place. And then now that explorers found minerals like copper and iron and magnesium and all those things up north, they were able to quickly bring them down by ship. And so, shipping waterways were the main form of transportation. The three main industries that sustained the Detroit settlers were fishing, farming, and hunting. And then in the 1750s, we got pretty advanced in shipbuilding. And then we started building hearths, and those became stoves. We became the stove capital of the world. We started building marine engines in the 1850s. Lots and lots of risk takers came here, and they still come here because we can still build anything in the world, and at scale, at spec. Just an amazing richness of manufacturing talent here, complemented by all those wonderful natural resources.
It's amazing, RJ. We're running beyond normal time, so are there some quick final thoughts before we sign off?
Well, I would just say that I hope people appreciate Detroit more so than they do. I know we sometimes get a bad rap, but if you really take a little time, you'll appreciate what makes Detroiters so vibrant, so generous, so tight knit, and just the depth of businesses and countries that are represented here. You can get quickly, so to speak, all over the world just with a phone call with somebody from, the Malta Chamber of Commerce or the French American Chamber of Commerce or the Asian Pacific American Chamber of Commerces. And all those chambers are pretty much the largest of their kind in the United States. And a purely just a great benevolence here too of the charitable organizations like the American Heart Association, American Lungs, among the best and largest chapters in the country as well. So there's a lot of wealth here and just a lot of history, and it's just a great place to live.
I agree. We're out of time. RJ King, it's been a pleasure spending some time with you. I appreciate it. I want to thank you for being our guest on Gracefully Graying. I want to thank our viewers for watching Gracefully Graying. And of course, I want to thank our sponsors for helping Gracefully Graying be available to as many people as possible. Thank you again, RJ. I appreciate your coming on. And again, your talent is wonderful in the writing areas.